Alright guys, welcome back. Let's take a look at how we can use GitHub repository and Git desktop to keep track of an Unreal Engine project. So to start with, what we need to do is to create a new repository, and then I'm going to call this guy Git demo, something like that, and then put it into this folder here. One thing you want to be really careful is the git ignore, and you want to pick the one that's compatible with your particular project. And we're doing Unreal Engine, so I'm going to pick Unreal Engine. And if you're using Visual Studio or Unity, you can pick the corresponding one. This git ignore determines what files are actually not being tracked. Hence, it's called ignore, right? It's ignoring any file specified in its git ignore file. Okay, we'll look at it when it's created. License-wise, doesn't really matter if you don't really want it to be somehow having a license. If you want to be completely free, I believe that's Creative Commons 0 there to be making it completely free. None doesn't mean it's free, it just doesn't have a license. Okay. All right, and I think that's it. I'm going to go ahead and create the repository here. Okay. Now currently this repository is here locally on your computer. Okay, and there's nothing here. You can click on that show in Explorer to actually show it. You can see this is how the repository looks like. It has a git ignore file. That's the file I talked about earlier. If you open it, you can see now it's basically listing all the files that's not going to be tracked through the history. That include some of the folders, and that's everything in the binary folder, for example, will be ignored because you can always rebuild binaries. And then library files, dynamic linked library files, a bunch of pre-compiled headers, right? Those kind of things are not needed because they can always be rebuilt. And there's a bunch of random history files like the saved files, intermediate. Those are not needed. Okay, let me close the file here. There's another one called git attributes that's going to be used to determine some other system that's part of the Git. And I think this one wouldn't have much, only auto detect text files and perform large file normalization. Don't know what that does. Probably not important. Okay, so that's basically how the how a GitHub repository looks like. And there's one more folder here called .git. Don't touch it because this one is actually where the actual history is stored. Right, there's a bunch of things that you don't want to know. Okay, so don't touch it. If you're not seeing it, that's also okay. This is because in your folder options, you're now viewing the hidden files. So you can also just check on don't show hidden files, and that's gonna not show the Git file anymore. Okay, all right. So long story short, you will have just those two files to start with, and don't touch that .git file folder here. That's it. So once the repository is created, it's still local here, right? Nothing is going to happen online yet. There's no online server yet or online repository yet. To actually get it uploaded to GitHub, what you can do is you can actually click on this publish repository here to publish it. Okay, and then you can give it a name. I'm going to call this guy Git demo test, something like that. And then you'd like to keep it private. Otherwise, other people can actually download it for free, right? They can download your entire source file. But if you don't really care, right, you can just make it public by checking it out. I'm going to keep it as private. And then you can also have some organizations here if you belong to some organizations or you're participating. I'm participating in some of the things here. Okay, and then that should be it. And then you can just publish the repository. And that will actually upload your local repository to GitHub. Okay, so now you can click on that view on GitHub, which will actually open GitHub, and you can see it in here. And of course, if you haven't logged in, you need to log in. Okay, all right. You can see the GitHub has the same stuff in there, right? Git ignore and a bunch of other things, and that's the same as the ones you have here locally. All right. Now, currently you have one computer that has a local copy, and you have also a copy on GitHub. Okay, and like what I said earlier, the GitHub Git works as a distributed version control, which means that everyone can have a copy. So you can have a copy, other people can have a copy too. Okay, so it goes like this. So if you wanted to then start sharing this with other people or working with other people, First of all, you need to go to the settings, and the other people, of course, has to have a GitHub account. Then you have to add them as collaborators here for them to be able to access yours. Okay. Right, and then you just add people and find their name and add them. Then they can access it. Okay. Once that's done, then you go back here to your repository, and you can go to the code, and then click on its copy link, and that's your means to pull that down from another computer here. And I'm going to do that on the same computer here, and that's working perfectly fine. So let me just go as if it's a different computer. It will work. Okay, so let me go to the git-get demo, and then let me just create another folder. I can just do it in here actually. I'd like to do it with console command because I'm very comfortable with that. So let me just do that here. CMD to open the command prompt, and then this is just going to say git clone, and then paste in that directory. That's all you have to do. Hit enter, and that will clone the repository into your repository here. And it's also going to ask you to log in if you haven't. So I'm going to sign in with the browser here, I guess. And I should already sign in actually, I think. Does it do that? Maybe it does not. I'm not so sure. But it should be cloned already. You can see now I have this git demo test. If you open it, you can see the same thing there, right? So that's another copy, okay, of the same repository. So now I have two copies, the same thing, right, on my computer. Just imagine that this one is on one computer and this one is on a different computer. And we have also one online. So we have that two computer and the server scenario there, right? Okay, so that's the basic setup. So anyone that needs to be collaborating, you first add them as collaborator through your GitHub settings here, right? Add them as collaborators, and then you give them the link here, and then they can get it downloaded or pulled down to their computer using the command prompt I showed you earlier, git clone. Right. Alternatively, with the GitHub desktop, I think you can also do it. I believe, go for file and then clone repository. You can just paste in the folder there too, or actually URL here and paste that in here, right? And then you need to find a place here. Let me just do it in a different folder again one more time. So I'm gonna do that in the demo desktop with the desktop version, and go to that folder and select folder there, and then you can also clone it there. So that's just how you do it with the GitHub desktop. Okay, and this is how like everyone is getting the copy of the same project, right? Now you can see I have 3 copies, right? Desktop, this one, and they're exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's what I mean distributed version control. Everyone has a copy, and one computer can have multiple copies. Okay. All right, that should be a third video now already, right? To how to set it up, and then how to get it uploaded to the online server, and how do you pull it down from a different computer and through either console or the GitHub desktop. Now let's jump into the next video where we talk about how we can actually start tracking and keeping histories in the general workflow. Okay, see you guys next time.